Hello, friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck. All right, today we're going to do another episode of Bytes and Nibbles with Breck. Today's recipe, we are going to try Penny West-Hagan's The Best Meatloaf. Now, I know that sounds like a very subjective title. We'll have to make our own decision whether it's the best, but that's what it's called. So we'll be the judge of how good it is. According to Penny, she was raised on this, began making it herself when she began cooking for her family, and now her daughter makes it. So it's been prepared for 3 generations. And you know what? I like a good meatloaf, and the recipe is pretty simple. So let's go make Penny's The Best Meatloaf. The ingredients for this meatloaf recipe are 1.5 pounds of extra lean, 90% lean ground beef. I got this really good Kobe ground beef from HEB, which is going to be pretty good. 1 cup or 8 ounces of tomato sauce. It also recommends you can use tomato juice if you wish. 1/4 ounce or 3/4 of a cup, of Quaker Oats. Being the rebel I am, I'm gonna ignore the Quaker part, and we're just gonna go with the HEB store brand. You can go with either the regular or old-fashioned uncooked oats. 1 egg or 2 egg whites, depending on what your choice is. 1/4 cup of chopped onion, and 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And the salt is optional if you're trying to go low sodium on this. And basically, it's really simple. You just kind of mix this all together and put it into a 4x8 loaf pan and bake it for 350 degrees for an hour. And then there's a few variants that we can play with at the end. So let's get going on this. Now, a lot of times I don't preheat the oven right at the beginning because it takes a little longer to prepare these things when you're not only preparing them, but also setting up shots and recording it and all that stuff. But this all goes together really quickly. So I'm going to start the preheating process right now. And it defaults to 350 degrees. So we have now preheated our oven. Now the recipe calls for chopped onion. Now last time I made a lasagna, I used a slicer tool on the food processor to make the onion, to prepare the onion. And one of the problems I think I ran into is I ended up with really big long strips of the onion that ended up, making the meatloaf kind of fall apart because, there were like almost sections where like the whole section of meatloaf had like 1 piece of onion in the middle, and so it just kind of fell apart. So I think this time I'm going to flip the thing over, and we're actually going to use the grating tool because you don't really need to have the big chunks of onion in the meatloaf. You just want them in there for the flavor. So if you kind of grind them up into smaller chunks with a grating tool, I think you'll end up with better results than I did last time. And what I have is a little bit of the onion left over from that bubble and squeak recipe I did a couple weeks ago. So we're going to use the rest of that. And we're just going to throw that into the food processor and grind it up. Recipe also calls for 1 egg, slightly whipped. A nice little whisk brush that does really good, or whisk tool that does really good for that. And basically what we do now is just kind of mix everything together. The recipe actually recommends doing it by hand, but since I got the nice handy dandy kitchen mixer here, I'm going to do it in the mixer and use the paddle tool. So that works really well for me. So we're going to put the beef in there, salt and pepper, the oats, 1/4 cup of onions, the egg, and the tomato sauce. That's 8 ounces or 1 cup, whichever you prefer. I'm going to put the beater tool on, preferably without dropping it on the floor like I almost did. And I'm going to lock the beater down, and we're just going to beat it here. Like I said, this is a lot better, at least in terms of a cleanliness standpoint, than doing it by hand. just a personal preference. You can do it the old-fashioned way if you want, but you got the technology, why not use it, right? Speed up the beater a little bit, just to make sure we got it nice and mixed together. And we should be pretty good now here. I'll try to lock it down here. So what I'm going to do is get a little rubber scraper and kind of pull that all out of the beaters. Simple enough, right? Because when you paid $300 for a mixer, you're going to use it as much as you can, right? Now there's a couple of variations you can do on this recipe if you're so inclined. One of them says that you can add half a cup of chopped either green or red bell peppers. Some people put half a cup of frozen or thawed canned corn in it. Neither of those, sound terribly appealing to me. I'm not really a bell pepper fan and not sure how corn is going to sound in a meatloaf. They also suggest you put 1 2.5 ounce can of sliced mushrooms. That might actually be pretty good, at least from my perspective. They also suggest you can mix in 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese. Now there is one variant I am going to do, and that is that they suggest that you can put some grated cheese on top, a cup of grated cheese on top. You cook it for the full hour, and then you pull it out, pour on the grated cheese, throw it back in for 3 minutes, and cook it until the cheese is bubbly. That actually sounds really good, so I think I'm going to try that variant. But it's all in there. You can decide whether you want to do it or not. And other than adding the cheese afterwards, I think I'm going to just kind of stick pretty basic to the recipe. Now my 4x8 loaf pan is still in the storage locker, so I just got some of these disposable ones. And this is kind of nice because they come with a little plastic cover, so once you're done having a meal for tonight, you can put the cover on it and save it in the fridge or whatever for the future. So at this point, all we're going to do is we're going to just put our meatloaf mixture right into the pan here. And just kind of squeeze it into a loaf shape here. I'm just going to use a rubber scraper to do that. And you're right, the 4x8 pan is just about the right size for this. So we're just going to kind of push it all down, make sure we've kind of filled in all the voids. Yeah, this should be good. And that is our meatloaf, ready to go into the oven. Now Penny says that she, one of the things that she does with this is that she actually bakes it on a broiler pan so that the fat drains away a little bit better. She also says she puts ketchup on beforehand. Now I don't have a broiler pan, so I'll just have to deal with the fat. And I do love ketchup in my meatloaf, but I can put that on afterwards. So I'm just going to throw this in the oven for 1 hour. At 350 degrees. We'll come back in an hour and see how this looks. And in it goes. We'll be back in an hour. So a lot of people use like breadcrumbs of some sort rather than the oatmeal. So I'm actually really kind of interested to see how this turns out. If the oatmeal makes it better or what kind of an improvement or difference it is. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking this out. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's throw some cheese on that, and then we're going to throw it back in the oven for a little bit. And I've just got some of this shredded Mexican cheese here. I use it with omelets and and back into the oven for 3 minutes. All right, 3 minutes is up. We're going to take it out. We're going to let it rest for a few minutes, and then we're going to try this thing out. And just for fun, I decided to do a little steamed asparagus too, because what's more hoity-toity than steamed asparagus with meatloaf? So there you go, meatloaf and asparagus, because what doesn't go better together than meatloaf and asparagus? Let's dig in. All right, I'll admit it looks good, so let's give it the all-important taste test here. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it was a much better idea to grate the onions rather than slicing them, because there aren't any like big long 4-inch long chunks of onion ring in here that cause it all not to hold together. This actually is very firm and holds together very well, has good flavor. Yeah, I don't even taste the oatmeal in it, so that's a good substitute for the bread. So yeah, I can attest to this one. This is a good meatloaf. Cost about for 4 servings, it cost about $15 or so to do. I actually had the eggs and the salt and pepper and the onion, so I didn't have to do anything with that. And the asparagus, that was above and beyond, and I had to buy that little aluminum 4x8 loaf pan because I didn't have one of those. But yeah, it worked really good. I do agree with Penny on one thing. Probably doing it on a broiler plate is a better idea, because there was a little bit of oil built up in the bottom of the thing when I cut the first slice out. And what I actually did is I just kind of poked a little hole in the bottom of the loaf pan so that the fat can drain out. So it won't be a problem in the future. But yeah, that's a good idea. What I was thinking about doing initially was actually putting the whole concoction on a poking a hole in the bottom of the tray when I cooked it, and then putting the whole concoction on like a metal grate in a cookie tray so that the oil could drip out. I didn't do that because the metal grate was in the dishwasher at the time, but I'll probably do that in the future just to kind of let the fat drain away a little bit. But this is really good. No complaints. So anyway, I think that is all that I have for today. Thank you as always for watching. Great job, Penny West-Hagan. This was a fantastic recipe that you sent me. I enjoyed it, and I'm going to sit down and eat the rest of this now. So thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Bon appetit!